Joe Biden is a fascist. There, I said it. Yeah, I know it's basically cliched at this point, with how often every politician under the sun is called a fascist now, especially most right-leaning politicians and anyone whose last name happens to be Trump. But when it comes to actual policies and what politicians are saying or doing, if anyone gets close to being an actual fascist, it's Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. They're the party that wants more government. They're the party that says the government gets to decide what our rights are. They're the party that says the government should be allowed to enter your homes and dictate how you live your life. They're the party that uses the state to lock down the economy and jailed anyone who refused to comply. Then once they had the White House and Congress, got to stand in front of the nation and tell everyone, as the government, that help is on the way.
Help is on the way.
That help is on the way.
Help is on the way.
And I guess it's becoming an overused phrase, that help was on the way.
As Ronald Reagan put it, the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And this is the mindset of the fascists, that the government is all-encompassing, that it is the solution to all your troubles, that it should in fact control and be involved in every minutia of your everyday life. As Mussolini put it, everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. And this is the mindset that Democrats more often than not seem to express. That the individual should not have the right to control their own lives by their own choices, unless those choices reflect what the government has deemed good for society, or some marginalized group, or as more often ends up being, good for the Democrats. Because again, they believe the government should be the center of everyone's life and we should all be subservient to it. Even as far back as the 2012 election, the Democrat National Committee put out a video saying, the government is the only thing we all belong to.
We are committed to all people. We do believe you can use government in a good way. Government's the only thing that we all belong to.
This is, of course, an absurd concept. The very foundation in which the United States was built on was that we are free peoples who instituted a government in order to secure our rights, meaning we're separate from the government. We don't belong to the government, or work for it, or bow to it, as the power of the government comes from the consent of the governed. Because, for the most part, a government in of itself is a necessary evil, one that due to the nature of men is prone to corruption, which is why the Founding Fathers structured the government in a way that they did and put in a Bill of Rights, a set of amendments telling the government not what it could do, but actually telling the government what it cannot do, and what we the people have a right to. Yet all of this is seemingly ignored by Democrats. And we've now seen Joe Biden in his first sort of address to Congress say something very similar to the 2012 line that the government is the only thing we all belong to.
Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I. Not some force in a distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we the people.
We the people are the government. No, Joe, we're not. We the people are not the government. We the people created the government, and then elected people to send to that government to represent our interests, so that we the people could enjoy our rights and freedoms. Rights and freedoms that government is supposed to be protecting. Yet it seems to be doing the exact opposite of that these days, especially when being run by the Democrat Party. Although the Republican Party hasn't been doing a stellar job of it either. But at least they're not telling me that I belong to the government. At least they're not handing down edicts from on high like we continually saw throughout 2020 and are still seeing from Democrat governors like Newsom, Whitmer, and Cuomo. So many Democrats have been acting like petty dictators, and Joe Biden has been no exception. I mean, this is the guy who suggested only dictators rule through executive orders.
No, well, I got to get the votes. I got to get the votes. That's why, the one thing that I have this strange notion. We are a democracy. Some of my Republican friends and some of my Democratic friends even occasionally say, well, if you can't get the votes by executive order, you're going to do something. Things you can't do by executive order unless you're a dictator. We're a democracy. We need consensus.
And then, as soon as he set foot in the White House, proceeded to sign more executive orders on his first day than the past 4 presidents' first days combined. And now at this point, he signed more executive orders than any other president in history. But remember, it's Trump who was the fascist. I mean, Trump was called a fascist for simply signing executive orders. He was called a fascist for saying he wanted to put America first. He was called a fascist for calling out the media for their fake news. Yet Trump was probably the president who spent more time talking to the media than any other president in modern history. So while Trump was called a fascist for just pushing back against the media through his rhetoric and, of course, through Twitter, Biden and his administration are actually directly curating the media, at least in terms of the White House press corps, as the administration is demanding to approve quotes before they're published by reporters. I mean, can you imagine what Democrats would have said had Trump been doing this? They probably would have impeached him that day, saying he's violating the First Amendment. But because this is Joe Biden, a Democrat, they'll let it happen. And the media will just grumble about it. Because they'll let Joe Biden get away with whatever he wants. Even if that means being a fascist dictator. Even if that means being a racist dictator. Every Democrat, leftist, and media personality you can think of have called Trump a racist. Yet it's Joe Biden that actually has a federal judge saying his restaurant fund that's supposed to be helping small businesses discriminated against white males. Sounds like a racist to me. Sounds like something a fascist would do. I mean, Joe Biden basically said he was going to be discriminating based on race and gender. By, naming the race and genders he intended to help.
Our focus will be on small businesses on Main Street that aren't wealthy and well-connected, that are facing real economic hardships through no fault of their own. Our priority will be Black, Latino, Asian, and Native American-owned small businesses, women-owned businesses, and finally having equal access to resources needed to reopen and rebuild.
So yeah, I didn't hear white and or male in that list. Sounds racist to me, especially when he said their priority are these groups. But this is right in line with what the Democratic Party has always been. They've always been focused on race and gender for decades. And the woke nonsense has only made it worse. But this blatant picking and choosing of groups this way, whether it's based off race, gender, or some other factor, is not only, 1, against the law, and 2, highly immoral, especially in terms of the way they're choosing, based on the woke assumption that white males are inherently privileged and not in any need of support. I believe that is a form of fascism. So, in what other ways is Joe Biden showing his fascist side? Well, he seems to continually believe we as Americans need his permission to do certain activities, particularly peacefully gathering together with friends and family to celebrate things like, say, the 4th of July.
But I need you, the American people. I need you. I need every American to do their part. And that's not hyperbole. I need you. I need you to get vaccinated when it's your turn and when you can find an opportunity. And to help your family, your friends, your neighbors get vaccinated as well. Because here's the point. If we do all this, if we do our part, if we do this together, by July the 4th, there's a good chance you, your families and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout or a barbecue and celebrate Independence Day. That doesn't mean large events with lots of people together, but it does mean small groups will be able to get together. After this long, hard year, that will make this Independence Day something truly special.
Sorry, Joe. I don't need your permission to gather with people to celebrate the 4th of July. I don't need the scientists' permission, or the CDC's, or whoever else's. I have a God-given right, protected by the First Amendment, to peacefully assemble. I'll have the largest gathering I want if I damn well please. Because you, Joe Biden, are not my king. You're the asterisk president at best. And you have no say in what I do within the realm of my constitutional rights. But you do sound like a fascist dictator when you're telling the American people what they can and can't do for the 4th of July. This is the man that has routinely pushed that if you get vaccinated, you can start returning to normal and Americans can have their freedoms back. He told Americans that the rule is now simple: get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do, saying the choice is yours.
It's vaxxed or masked.
Well, I'll go with neither, Joe Biden, because again, you are not a king. But you certainly sound like a fascist dictator telling us when and where we have to wear a mask. He seems to think he's in control of all of our lives and gets to decide when we get to take a mask off.
Starting today, if you're fully vaccinated and you're outdoors, you need, and not in a big crowd, you no longer need to wear a mask. I want to be absolutely clear. If you're in a crowd, like a stadium or at a conference or a concert, you still need to wear a mask, even if you're outside. But beginning today, gathering with a group of friends in a park, going for a picnic, as long as you are vaccinated and outdoors, you can do it without a mask.
As well as believing that only when we get vaccinated do we get to have our freedoms back. That we should go get vaccinated now. That being able to go to parks or gather together with family and friends without a mask is a perfect reason to go get vaccinated.
So for those who haven't gotten their vaccination yet, especially if you're younger or think you don't need it, this is another great reason to go get vaccinated. Now.
Because these nut jobs seriously want to tie getting vaccinated and having proof of that vaccination to our freedom. They want to use our God-given rights as a carrot.
Clear to them that the vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And the window to do that is really narrowing. I mean, you were mentioning, Chris, about how all these states are reopening. They're reopening at 100%. And we have a very narrow window to tie reopening policy to vaccination status. Because otherwise, if everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
This is state control. This is state power. This is fascism, or at the very least, the telltale signs that those in power want to become fascist dictators, and it's things like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the power structure of the country that are hampering them from fully embracing it. And these people are just upset that the state can't fully control all of our lives. And they'll use different terms to disguise that fact while demonizing those who don't fall in line. For example, anytime a Democrat, media pundit, or leftist start referring to our democracy, or just democracy in general, what they're really referring to is the government.
I thought it was going to be an epiphany for those who were in opposition to our democracy to see the light. Instead, it has been an epiphany for the world to see that there are people in our country led by this president, for the moment, who have chosen their whiteness over democracy. That's what this is about. There was an article written a number of years ago on democracy which said, I fear the day when white Americans will have to choose between their whiteness and this democracy. And we saw what happened that day.
So what Pelosi is saying when she says people have chosen their whiteness over democracy, she's saying that people have chosen whiteness over the government, over the state. And remember, whiteness, as defined by the people who created the term, are things like individualism, self-reliance, independence, objective rational thinking, and property rights. They're talking about our rights and freedoms. So when Pelosi says people have chosen whiteness over democracy, what she's really saying is people have chosen their rights over the government. And they damn well better. Because the alternative is fascism. And it's Joe Biden and the Democrat Party that wants us to embrace the government and become dependent on it over our freedom and our God-given rights. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Also, look me up on other social media sites, as I'm on most main and alt-tech platforms. Definitely look me up on Gab and subscribe to me there, as Gab is now the alt-tech place to be that we all need to support. So thanks again, and God bless.